Hey everyone, another video I was not expecting to be doing today. Still waiting for Blake Lively's opposition to Wayfarer's motion for judgment on the pleadings. And when I did the filing from Wayfarer earlier today, this morning actually for me, I was so excited, so pumped, and I should have known that Blake Lively was going to file something which was just going to irritate the living daylights out of me. And we have it. How many pages? 3. So, and there's an exhibit with this, which I will read. Okay. Dear Judge Lyman, in accordance with Rules 1C and 1D of Your Honour's Individual Practices in Civil Cases and Rule 4B of Attachment A thereto, Plaintiff Blake Lively writes to respectfully request a 2.5-week extension of the current deadline for all parties and third parties to move for the continued sealing of documents filed under seal in connection with the Wayfarer Defendant's November 12th motion for summary judgment against Miss Lively, extending from the current November 20th deadline through December 8th. So she wants to keep the sealed exhibits that were attached to the motion for summary judgment. She wants an extra 2.5 weeks to move in the date from November 20th to December 8th. Miss Lively makes this motion only after extensive efforts to meet and confer with the Wayfarer defendants to develop a workable and fair plan for handling sealing motions in connection with summary judgment without success. As part of the motion, Wayfarer defendants filed more than 275 exhibits. Of those, 183 exhibits were filed under seal, but were not served upon Miss Lively until after the November 12th summary judgment filing deadline. In addition to the more than 100 sealed exhibits that are documents produced by or otherwise involving Miss Lively, the Wayfarer defendants filed under seal confidential documents and deposition testimony involving 15 third parties. Despite implicating the rights of these 15 third parties. What? What? Since when has she been concerned with the rights of third parties? What am I reading? Okay, all right. I guess we'll just, forget this happened. We'll just forget that, she didn't give a shit about the rights of 107 third parties who had nothing to do with this lawsuit. Whilst I understand what she's saying, but the 15 third parties she's concerned for were people that are at least a witness to something. They have relevant information. God, this woman really knows how to annoy me. Okay. Put it together, yeah. Despite implicating the rights of these 15 third parties, the Wayfarer defendants apparently did not notify these parties until yesterday. This woman did not even notify me at all that I was subpoenaed. She didn't notify any of us directly. She, passed that on to Google, TikTok, and X and said, oh, we want their data. And by the way, you give them notice. I never got notice, though, because she spelt my username wrong. Despite implicating the rights of these 15 third parties, I'll get through this. The Wayfarer defendants apparently did not notify these parties until yesterday that documents and/or testimony that they provided were filed under seal as part of the motion. Do you know, I'm that I'm actually that angry. Right? She has just been granted. She has just asked for and been granted a woman's personal video of her giving birth. And she's concerned about the rights of 15 people who she likely disclosed as people who had relevant information. She's concerned about the rights of people after she is the architect of Van Zan. Are you fucking kidding me? I don't lose my temper that often, but I'm really getting close because this is just bullshit. This is just her, using the docket to pick fights because Wayfarer are filing shit that she is not happy about. It makes her look bad. Oh my god. I will get that. Honestly, I will get that. I'm sorry. I'm just so annoyed, right? She's got Natasha Heath's birth video. She subpoenaed bank details amongst other things and personal data, location data, etc. of 107 content creators, one of which was me. And on top of that, she pulled the whole Van Zan and used a fake lawsuit to get fake subpoena power that she was not entitled to get the entire contents of Jen Abel's data on her phone, amongst other things. It wasn't just the data on the phone. There were other documents that Jones Works were subpoenaed for. She got all that data, Wayfarer's data too, by the way. And here she is now coming and go, Judge, Wayfarer didn't give notice to these 15 people who, by the way, whilst there may be some reasonable, rational argument there, those people knew when they were given deposition, when they were making disclosures during discovery, they knew damn well that it was intended to be used as part of a lawsuit. So, whilst I appreciate the notice side of this, this is not going to be a huge shock to these people because they're in the lawsuit. Right, anyway, I've said my piece. I'm annoyed, right? I can't help that. I am human. I've also been personally, I've personally experienced Blake Lively and her gaggle of lawyers attempting to, just upend my rights. I just feel like this is so bitter tasting that she's coming out here and pretending that she's concerned. Right. Okay, so Wayfarer defendants did not notify the parties, these third parties, until yesterday that documents that they knew fine well were part of a lawsuit were obtained specifically as part of a lawsuit, and or testimony, again, the same, that they provided were filed under seal as part of the motion. And their shit is under seal, by the way. So, nothing's been violated. This plainly violates Rule 4B of Attachment A to Your Honour's individual rules. Further, on at least 2 occasions, Ms. Lively has learned that the Wayfarer defendants have represented to third parties that the Wayfarer defendants and Ms. Lively have reached an agreement to extend the current deadline for continued sealing to November 26, which is not accurate. Prior to making the present letter motion, Ms. Lively requested, as a professional courtesy, this woman doesn't know the meaning of courtesy, Miss Lively requested as a professional courtesy that the Wayfarer defendant's agreement to a 3-week extension of the current sealing deadline, which would afford Miss Lively as well as other third parties sufficient time to review the more than 180 documents filed under seal, while also accounting for the 12 noticed expert depositions before December 12th. Miss Lively's opposition to the motion, due December 3rd. Opposition to the motion for judgment on the pleadings, also due December 3rd. Oh, is it due December 3rd? I had it. Hold on, I'm going to go and check that. Right, okay. So I have found, I've gone back to the actual request, and Judge Nyman agreed with this. This is from Kevin Fritz. As counsel for Wayfarer student and 2K of Your Honour's Rules and Practices, we write to advise the court that all parties have agreed to a briefing schedule for plaintiff Blake Lively and third party defendant Jones Works, because they both filed the spoliation sanction. Oh, this. So that's where I've gone wrong. So it's today is the opposition to the spoliation sanctions. Oh, when people say to me, "How do you keep up?" with great difficulty. Right, I knew there was something coming. She's filed that freaking much, right? That I've got myself muddled up. So it's not the motion for judgment on the pleadings. That opposition is due on December the 3rd. But we have got the spoliation sanctions response from from Wayfarer. And they will be responding to, by the way, to both Blake Lively and Stephanie Jones, because Stephanie Jones filed a almost identical motion. Oh yeah, it's in. It's actually in my phone as well, because I've got a calendar on my phone, so I've got reminders for all of the stuff that's due, and I have actually got it in my phone. Wayfarer response to sanctions due 20th. This case is exhausting. Right. Okay. So to clarify, that I made a mistake. It is not the motion for judgment on the pleadings. That's my bad. I'm just exhausted by this case, and I seem to be perpetually outraged lately as well. Okay, so I'm glad I clarified that. Okay. So, prior to making the present letter motion, Miss Lively requested as a professional courtesy the Wayfarer defendant's agreement to a 3-week extension of the current sealing deadline, which would afford Miss Lively, as well as the other third parties, sufficient time to review the more than 180 documents filed under seal, while also accounting for the 12 noticed expert depositions before December 12th. Miss Lively's opposition to the motion, due December 3rd, opposition to the motion for judgment on the pleadings, also due December 3rd. So when they say Miss Lively's opposition to the motion, they're talking about the summary judgment, because summary judgment and judgment on the pleadings, Lively has got to oppose both on December 3rd. And reply in support of Miss Lively's motion for spoliation sanctions, due December 5th. Miss Lively has granted similar courtesies. Miss Lively has granted similar courtesies to the Wayfarer defendants in relation to her motion for spoliation sanctions without requesting anything in return. Well, as a first for everything. Okay, so footnote, let's just see. Yeah, thank you for the footnote explaining that she herself filed 51 exhibits under seal for her motion for spoliation. Given that it's just a motion for sanctions, by the way, 51 exhibits is excessive. Given that Wayfarer is comprised of numerous defendants, I think there's 8, including the businesses. I think that's 8. And Lively is one defendant. Then, to be honest, her saying, well, I only filed 51 exhibits under seal, less than a third of the total exhibits filed by the Wayfarer defendants, more than multiple defendants in their motion. I mean, firstly, a summary judgment motion is a big, big deal. So you would expect more. You certainly would expect far more to be filed as exhibits, but also your motion for spoliation sanctions, which, by the way, all of those exhibits that you filed, the 51, they were duplicated by Stephanie Jones. She filed the exact same exhibits. So there are actually 102 exhibits filed under seal between the two of you. Anyway, however, the Wayfarer defendants rejected Miss Lively's request and offered 1 week to November 26th, which is 1 day before Thanksgiving. Miss Lively now regrettably makes this letter motion. And you don't regret shit. You love filing motions to go and tell the judge about Wayfarer. You do it nearly every day. Miss Lively now regrettably makes this letter motion seeking to extend the current November 20th deadline for all parties and third parties to seek the continued sealing to December 8th. No previous requests for adjournment or extensions of time have been made with respect to this deadline. Counsel for the Jones parties, your co-conspirators, consent to this request. Well, of course they do. The Wayfarer defendants oppose. The date of the parties' next scheduled appearance before the court is December 9th, 2025. Alternatively, in an effort to promote judicial economy and avoid piecemeal motion practice. Are you kidding me? Lively wants to avoid piecemeal motion practice? Oh my god. I have literally heard everything in this one filing now. Alternatively, in an effort to promote judicial economy, I'm not going to get through it. I'm not going to get through this without laughing. To avoid, oh god, right, I'm going to start it again. Sorry. Alternatively, in an effort to promote judicial economy and avoid piecemeal motion practice, Miss Lively requests that the court extend and modify the timeline set forth in Rule 4B of Attachment A to the Your Honours typo individual rules and practices in connection with the motion. Specifically, Miss Lively requests that the producing parties who may wish to move for continued sealing or redaction of any materials submitted in connection with the motion be permitted to file a single omnibus submission addressing all such requests within 1 week of the motion being fully briefed, or by December 19th, 2025. Oh my god, right. This is like basically a call to arms. All the parties, because all the parties that their stuff is still sealed are her friends, her husband, Jones, etc., etc. I can hear it now. Judge, the alternative is you if you let us all the people, all the parties who are affected by this, my hair and makeup person, my assistants, my chauffeur, all these people who are basically on her side, by the way, for the most part, Let us all write an omnibus motion together addressing. Just fuck off. It is going to get unsealed one way or another. You know, you may as well just like suck it up. And I want to see it. I want to see it as much as you want to see my stuff. Remember? Right. Okay. So, if adopted, that procedure would permit the court to review all of the sealing and redaction issues in connection with the motion at once, aided by a single letter from each producing party and without receiving a fresh wave of such letters each time the motion, opposition, and reply papers are submitted. It would also serve the interests of public access in connection with the papers supporting and opposing summary judgment for there to be a single moment of unsealing that is not specifically connected to which party submitted the evidence, when the court is able to resolve all of the sealing issues simultaneously in a single decision. Miss Lively suggested this alternative proposal to the Wayfarer parties who did not agree and who opposed this request. I bet they do. Counsel for the Jones parties consent to this alternative request. It is submitted that this proposal will aid judicial and party efficacy in addition to the motion. This woman. Okay, let's have a look at this email. I'll start from the bottom because it's always at the bottom. Okay, so this is coming from. This is I'll do Wayfarer Lively. So this is coming from Wayfarer to Lively's. Please let me know if you would like to meet and confer next week regarding the exhibits filed under seal in connection with the motion for summary judgment that were marked as confidential by plaintiff or third parties. What date is this? November 14th. Okay, so 5 days ago. Okay, so we get response from Lively's camp. The Wayfarer defendants filed more than 180 exhibits under seal, and it is our understanding that third parties who designated information confidential have not been given notice of the sealed filings. We also note that we did not receive the sealed exhibits until well past the deadline into the early hours of November 13th. Given the volume and logistical issues, we need additional time for all parties to review the documents before we can take a position on moving for continued sealing, especially in light of the Thanksgiving holiday coming up and our pressing focus on the summary judgment, motion for judgment on the pleadings, and expert depositions. As you know, we have been generous. As you know, we have been generous with extensions, including granting a substantial extension on the Wayfarer defendants' opposition to the motion for spoliation sanctions. Yeah, they may have been generous with the granting the extension. They were not generous with filing the sanction in the first place. Accordingly, we request a 3-week extension of time for all parties to move for the continued sealing of documents filed in relation to the Wayfarer defendants' motion for summary judgment. We would appreciate the professional courtesy given the circumstances of the Thanksgiving holiday, as well as the fact that Miss Lively previously agreed to several extensions for the Wayfarer defendants. Please let us know today. Honestly, she's like, but I've helped you out. I agreed to an extension for you. I only recall her doing that like once, maybe twice, I remember that she wouldn't even agree to an extension when Friedman lost his home and his law firm in the California wildfires. So I don't understand this holier than thou attitude because she granted an extension for Wayfarer to respond to this ridiculous spoliation motion. I don't understand that. Okay. So this is coming from, who's this from? Quinn Manuel. So that's Stephanie Jones's lawyers. All. We are amenable to the requested extension and would suggest a parallel extension in connection with Miss Abel's motion for conditional summary judgment against Jones Works to keep the issues on the same track. Please let us know if you agree. So the way it's been painted in the letter by Lively is, we did this favor. We were only asking, for this, and they said no, and they're really unreasonable about it. But actually, what's going on in the emails is the requests are multiple requests to Wayfair, because not only is Lively asking for an extension, because the letter makes it sound like she's doing Jones a favor. Like, well, if you're going to give us something, you should really give it to Jones as well. The letter hasn't been filed jointly between Lively and Jones, so it comes across as Lively's going out of her way to do a favor for her friend. When what's actually happened behind the scenes here is Jones is also making, requests as well for extension. So it's not just one request. And these are two different lawsuits. They're connected, but they are still two, separate lawsuits for all intents and purposes. So it's a bigger asking than they're portraying it to be. Of course, she's misleading. Okay, so this is from Lively. Thank you, Morgan. See, they're friends. How cute. This is fine from our perspective. Could the Wayfarer defendants please advise? We would like to get a stipulation on the docket today. So what day is that? That's November the 18th. That's yesterday. Okay, and then we get a response from Wayfarer Council. We understand the importance of courtesy extensions and remain hopeful that the parties will continue to cooperate with respect to adjusting deadlines to the extent possible and as appropriate. At the same time, sorry, my little girl's sleeping next to me. At the same time, we are mindful of both the Second Circuit's and Judge Lyman's admonitions that sealing issues be dealt with promptly given the public's right of access. Accordingly, we are amenable to a 3-day extension of the deadline so that third parties can be contacted and any necessary meet and confers can proceed. We will contact the third parties separately, given that Miss Lively does not have standing to speak for their concerns. Yes, I'm glad someone pointed that out. We also note that the agreed upon schedule for summary judgment and Dalbert briefing was made based on our understanding, following discussions with you, that Miss Lively would be filing a summary judgment motion of her own. In multiple discussions, you never advised us that she would not be doing so. See, I thought so. I'm sure I heard her say, possibly in that hearing, that she was going to be filing her own motion for summary judgment. It's not overly common for the plaintiffs to do that. That is definitely more of a dependent thing. So Wayfarer, yeah, absolutely, it was a given that they were going to file a motion for summary judgment. Lively, not so much, but she did allude that she was going to be filing one, and then they come up with that joint filing where they agreed upon limits to pages and all kinds of things, and then she just didn't. And there was a lot of speculation, and I considered it too. Did she just say she was going to lock Wayfarer into a page limit to limit their argument with, whilst never intending to file a motion for summary judgment of her own? It's a possibility. I don't know. I put nothing past her. I think the reason she's annoyed here is because it looks like one of the ways that Wayfarer's have got around that limit, that 60-page limit, is by filing all of these exhibits. They've alluded to the exhibit, they've cited it, and then they've let the exhibit do the talking for them. It's genius. Wow, that is interesting. So yeah, now we have confirmation that Lively did intend. She did state and assured Wayfarer that she would be filing a summary judgment motion of her own, and she did not let them know that she was not going to file one. Thus, when we agreed to the schedule, we did so with the understanding that the sealing deadlines under Judge Lyman's rules would apply to both sides, and that we too would face the time constraints of those rules in working out any sealing issues. Yeah, that's absolutely fair. Because had she filed her own motion for summary judgment, you're damn sure that she would have been filing it, 150 plus sealed exhibits herself. I mean, come on, look what she did just with her spoliation sanctions motion. So, summary judgment, she definitely would have been filing a lot. And they had worked out a schedule on the sealing based on the fact that they both intended to file said summary judgment, and then both intended to be bound by the sealing schedule. And now here's Lively coming in and going, Judge, Wayfarer aren't being fair. It's just bullshit. Oh, I'm trying to relax. Moreover, in discussing that schedule, you proposed extending the sealing schedule by a similar extended period of time, and we did not agree because of the public interest in disclosure. So we don't see any reason to renegotiate that issue now. Okay, so she already tried to extend it. Separately, we note that we do not object to redacting personal identifying information on any document that is unsealed, and we are happy to advise the court that we will refile any such document with appropriate redactions after the appropriate scope of sealing is determined. Oh my goodness, Lively is just something else. Okay. This is coming from Lively. Alice. The Wayfarer defendant's refusal to extend the professional courtesy of a modest extension to afford Miss Lively, the Jones parties, and the other third parties sufficient time to review and evaluate more than 180 exhibits under seal is disappointing, especially when similar courtesies have been extended by Miss Lively numerous times at the Wayfarer defendant's request. That said, in an effort to find compromise, please advise whether the Wayfarer defendants will agree to a 2-week extension which will push the deadline out from the Thanksgiving holiday. Please confirm by close of business today, Pacific time, whether the Wayfarer defendants agree to our requested extension. If not, we will move for such relief and inform the court of your refusal to provide this basic courtesy. I am hopeful this will not be necessary. Oh, for goodness sake. If you don't give us what we want, we're going to run to Judge Lyman, who probably will. Then this comes from Wayfarer. Thanks, Matt. Our team is dispersed at the moment. We will consider and get back to you as early as practicable tomorrow morning. Okay. And then this comes from Lively. Alice. This is a time-sensitive issue that will require the court's immediate attention if the Wayfarer defendants do not agree to our request for a 2-week extension. As such, we need the Wayfarer defendants' position today. It has also been brought to our attention that members of your team are representing to third parties that we have reached an agreement to extend the sealing deadline to November 26th. It is our understanding that the extension you offered below was to November 24th, not November 26th. But either way, it is obviously not accurate to characterize this as an agreement. when the parties are still discussing the deadline. It puts undue pressure on third parties, particularly when we are seeking more time to consider these issues, which would benefit third parties also, and the Wayfarer defendants failed to give third parties notice until now, apparently. I mean, to be fair, they did just say in their last email, we will notify the third, so they've clearly done that. Okay, so this is from Wayfarer Matt. This was my error to the third parties, and I will be correcting it. Please do not speak for the third parties, as you do not represent them. Okay, I want to see Wayfarer's response to this. I think it's ridiculous. Oh my god, I got so angry. Sorry, guys. I don't normally get like that. I'm normally restrained, professional, and my Britishness, my diplomacy, and calm approach to things serves me well. But today, and I think like I say, probably because I've been personally affected by her lack of consideration for third parties' rights. I've literally had my rights offered up as something to dissect in this lawsuit that I am not a party to, and I've never had anything to do with the film, the parties, or anything. I've just spoken about public filings as I am doing right now, and that was enough for Blake Lively to subpoena me. And it felt like a massive violation at the time. It still does. It still does. And I just find it rich that she is sitting here, filing to moan again about something the Wayfarer has done, which she has clearly done herself. And everything she has done, after everything she has done to the content creators that she subpoenaed, to the Wayfarer defendants who she did the whole Van Zandt thing and got a fake subpoena for. I mean, really? Really? But also, I mean, it annoys me to hear that, she's throwing this whole, oh, well, we were generous to you. We gave you an extension. When I remember so well the time she denied Brian Friedman an extension whilst he was in the middle of home during the Palisades wildfires. She even tried to serve them. They live in California. They were affected by the wildfires. And she was, instead of being, understanding and caring, she was trying to serve them the summons for this lawsuit. She specifically denied. They wrote a letter to oppose Brian Friedman's request for an extension due to the fact that he had lost literally everything. What I'm still trying to litigate this case. And when Wayfarer asked for an extension because they were absolutely strategically swamped by Leslie Sloan, Blake Lively, Brian Reynolds, all filing a bunch of shit, whilst also, filing their motions to dismiss, whilst also, doing a bunch of other stuff right at the time that Wayfarer's deadline for amending their first amended complaint, like filing a second amended complaint, was coming. When Wayfarer asked for an extension for that, they said no. So, well, that's me just annoyed now for the night. Right, okay. So we have got. I am really sorry as well about my mistake. This case and all of its related cases are a lot, and I am organized. I'm still recovering from the pancreatitis. And I've got my little girl who's not very well at the moment and having problems with her nasogastric tube, so I didn't get any sleep last night. Um, so I'm quite tired. But, yes, is so to recap, the opposition for the motion for on judgment on the pleadings is due by Lively on the 3rd of December. At the same time, her opposition to Wayfarer's motion for summary judgment is also due. Tomorrow, Wayfarer's opposition to her ridiculous motion for spoliation sanctions is due. And I can't wait to read it. And I really want to see what they say to this filing as well, because honestly, this one is really annoyed me. It's personal. Okay, have a good evening. And if there's something else, I will probably do another video. If not, then you will all hear from me tomorrow.